My name is Nadia. I am 32 years old. I have been married to Thomas for 6 years, or I thought I had been. What I actually had was a legal marriage that Thomas believed he had ended without telling me all of it. This is what happened. Thomas and I met when I was 25. He was charming and certain, the kind of man who knows exactly what he wants and goes to get it. I found that attractive at first. I found it less attractive later. But at 25, I said yes. When he asked me to marry him, the first 3 years were fine. Not wonderful, fine. We lived in a large apartment. He worked in finance. I worked in education. We had different schedules and different worlds. But we managed. We had dinners on Friday nights. We took 2 vacations a year. It was a life. In the 4th year, things started to change. Thomas was homeless. His phone was always face down. He became short with me over small things. I noticed, but I did not say anything immediately. I had learned that Thomas did not respond well to being questioned directly. He would shut down or become defensive. By the 5th year, I knew something was wrong. I did not know exactly what, but I knew. A woman always knows when the warmth has been replaced by something else. I started to ask questions. He gave me answers that were technically true, but felt hollow. That is a special kind of lie. One evening, he came home and sat down at the kitchen table. He had a folder with him. He put it on the table and pushed it toward me. He said, "I think we should end this." He said it the way someone says it when they have already decided. Not a question, a statement. I looked at the folder. He said he had spoken to a lawyer. He said the papers were straightforward. He said he hoped we could do this without it becoming difficult. He said the word difficult the way people say it when they mean, "I hope you do not make this hard for me." I was not ready, but I also knew I could not fight what was already gone. I took the folder home that evening. I looked through it. I signed what he asked me to sign. I gave the papers to my own lawyer the next morning. She said she would handle the rest. I moved out 3 weeks later. Thomas kept the apartment. I rented a small place 2 neighborhoods away. I tried to rebuild. It was slow. Grief is slow even when you saw it coming, even when you are not entirely surprised. The ending still has its weight. For a year, I focused on moving forward. I returned to things I had set aside during the marriage. Old friendships, books I had meant to read, long walks in the morning. I started to feel like myself again. Slowly, in pieces, but genuinely. Then 14 months after I signed those papers, I received a call from my lawyer. Her voice was careful. She said, "Nadia, I need to tell you something, and I want you to sit down first." I sat down. She said, "Your divorce was never finalized." I said, "What?" She said, "The filing was incomplete. The papers you signed were submitted, but the process was not completed on his end." She said, "As of today, you are still legally married to Thomas." I held the phone for a long time without speaking. I said, "How is that possible?" She explained the procedural details. I did not absorb most of them. What I absorbed was this. For 14 months, I had believed I was a divorced woman. I had been grieving an ending, building a new beginning, and none of it was legally real. My lawyer said she would handle the proper filing. She said it would be resolved quickly. She said I should try not to worry. I thanked her and ended the call. I sat in my apartment for an hour, doing nothing, just sitting, trying to understand what this meant. I decided it meant nothing in practical terms. The feelings were already gone. The life was already over. A piece of paper was just a detail that needed fixing. I told myself this and mostly believed it. My lawyer filed the correct papers. I thought the matter was settled. Then 2 weeks later, I received a different kind of message. It was from my friend Petra, who still lived in the old neighborhood. She said, "I saw Thomas at the market yesterday. He was with a woman." She said, "I am sorry, Nadia, but I think they might be together." She said she looked like she was moving in. I said, "Thank you for telling me," and I meant it. I thought nothing more of it. Thomas could do whatever he wished. That was no longer my concern. I had my own life to build. I was building it. I did not need to think about Thomas and whoever he had found. But then I received a message from Thomas himself. It arrived on a Wednesday evening. He said, "I wanted to tell you something before you heard it from someone else." He said, "I have met someone." He said, "We are going to be together." He said, "I hope you can be happy for me." I started to type a polite response. Then I remembered. I was still legally married to him. My lawyer had filed the new papers only 10 days ago. The process takes time. I checked with her the next morning. She confirmed. The divorce was not yet finalized. We were technically still married. I said nothing to Thomas. I had no desire to cause a scene. I wanted this to be over cleanly. I told my lawyer to proceed as quickly as the law allowed. She said she was doing everything possible. I waited. 3 days later, there was a knock on my door. I was not expecting anyone. I opened it. Standing in my hallway was a woman I had never seen before. She was perhaps 30. She had dark hair and a nervous expression. She introduced herself. Her name was Simone. She said, "I know this is strange." She said, "I need to talk to you about Thomas." She said, "He told me his divorce was finalized over a year ago." She said, "I just found out it was not." She said, "I thought you should know what he told me, and I thought you deserved to hear it from me directly." I looked at her for a moment. Then I stepped back and said, "Please come in." She sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same table where Thomas had pushed that folder toward me 2 years ago. I made tea. We talked. She said Thomas had told her they could build a life together, that his past was fully behind him, that he was free. She said she had believed him because she had no reason not to. She said she felt foolish now. I told her she had no reason to feel foolish. Liars are convincing. That is what they do. She said she had confronted Thomas the previous evening. He had tried to explain. She said his explanations were not satisfying. She said she had come to me because she wanted to understand what kind of man she was dealing with. I told her what I knew. I told her about the folder at the kitchen table, the way he had said the word difficult, the way he had presented everything as already decided. I told her about my lawyer's call, about 14 months of believing something that was not legally true. I told her calmly, without anger. There was no anger left by then. She listened to everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I am sorry he did this to you, and I am sorry I was part of it without knowing." I said she had nothing to apologize for. She said she was going to end things with him. I said that was her choice to make. My divorce was finalized 11 days later. My lawyer called to confirm. I said thank you. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat by the window. Outside, the city moved in its usual way. People going somewhere, living their lives. I was living mine. Thomas sent me a message the day after the finalization. He said he hoped I was well. He said he wanted no hard feelings. I read the message once. I did not reply. There was nothing I needed to say to him. The chapter was closed. properly this time. Simone sent me a message a month later. She said she had moved out of the apartment she had shared with Thomas. She said she was doing better. She said she had been thinking about what I told her, and it helped her understand something important about herself and the choices she made. We met for coffee, then again the following month. She became someone I knew, not a close friend right away, but a real person, someone who had also found herself in a situation she had not chosen. We understood each other without having to explain everything. That was 2 years ago. I am in a better place now in every way that matters. My life is quieter than it was in the marriage, simpler, more mine. I have my work and my mornings and my long walks. I have people I trust around me. Thomas is with someone new. I heard that through a mutual acquaintance. I wished him nothing, not good things, not bad things, nothing. Some people you eventually reach a place of true indifference about. That indifference is its own kind of freedom. What I know now that I did not know then is this: a marriage ends when the connection ends. The paperwork is just the official record of something that was already over. The real work is not the legal process. The real work is what you do with yourself after. I did that work, slowly and without shortcuts. I am proud of that, not of the marriage, not of how it ended, but of what I built in the time after, of the woman I became when there was no one else to consider. That woman is someone I like very much. The year after the divorce, finalization, was a year of rediscovery. I do not mean that in the overly optimistic way people sometimes mean it. I mean it literally. I discovered things about myself that the marriage had obscured, not dramatically, just quietly, over time. I had given up small things during the marriage, not because Thomas demanded it exactly, but because the shape of his preferences left little room for mine. I had been a person who cooked elaborate meals. I stopped doing that. I became someone who made quick things, practical things. After the divorce, I cooked again. Really cooked. On a Sunday afternoon, I spent 4 hours making a dish my grandmother had made when I was young. It required soaking and slow simmering and patience. I stood in my small kitchen and felt like myself in a way I had not felt in years. I called my friend Marta to eat it with me. She said it was the best meal she had eaten in months. We sat at my small table and talked until late. She did not ask about Thomas. She asked about me, what I wanted, what I was thinking about. That conversation was a gift. My work improved that year too. I teach secondary school, literature. The year of the divorce, I had been distracted, present in body, but not fully in thought. The following year, I was fully there. My students noticed. One of them wrote in an end-of-year card, "This year, you seem like you actually love this." She was right. I did. Simone and I continued meeting, once a month over coffee, then over dinner. She was rebuilding too. Her situation had been different from mine, but some of the emotional shape of it was similar. We were both women who had trusted someone who was not trustworthy. That shared experience created a kind of shorthand between us. She told me once that she had been ashamed. She said when she realized what Thomas had done, she felt ashamed of herself for not seeing it. I told her I had felt that too at first. I told her what I had decided. The fault was his, entirely. Whatever shame there is belongs to the person who chose to deceive, not to the person who chose to trust. She held on to that. I could see her hold on to it. She said, "You are very clear about things." I said, "I became clear." It took time. I was not always clear. She said, "How did you get there?" I said, mostly by being very angry for a while and then letting the anger settle into something more useful. The anger had been there, quiet and complete. I had felt it in the 14 months of false belief, the feeling of having grieved something that was not legally real, the feeling of having been managed. That anger was rightful. I let myself feel it fully, and then I set it down. What I did not do was let the anger define me going forward. Some people hold their anger because it feels like protection. It does protect you in the short term, but it is heavy to carry and it distorts everything you see through it. I put it down when it had done its job. 2 years after the divorce, I met someone at a gallery opening. His name is Paul. He is a teacher too. We talked about books for an hour in front of a painting neither of us had looked at. He asked if I wanted to get coffee. I said yes. I told him early about Thomas, earlier than might have seemed necessary, but I had decided I would not carry something hidden into a new connection. I said I was married. It ended badly. He said, "Do you want to tell me what happened?" I said, "Eventually, yes. Not tonight." He said, "Whenever you are ready." He was patient in the way that people who have also lived through something are patient. He did not rush toward closeness. He did not make grand gestures early. He showed up consistently and honestly and let things develop at a pace that felt safe, that felt like respect to me. I told him everything eventually, over several evenings, in pieces, the way you tell things when they are real and heavy. He listened all the way through. He asked thoughtful questions. He said the right things and avoided the wrong ones. By the end, I felt lighter. That was something. My mother asked me once if I thought I would trust again. I understood what she was really asking. She had been hurt watching me go through it. She did not want to see it happen again. I said, "I think trust is always a choice, and I think the alternative is worse." She thought about that and then nodded. What Thomas taught me that he did not intend to teach me was something about what I actually valued. Before him, I had not had to examine it clearly. I had assumed. After him, I knew. I valued honesty above almost everything else. Genuine honesty, not strategic honesty, not partial truth, real honesty even when it was inconvenient. Paul is honestly inconvenient sometimes. He disagrees with me and says so directly. He has opinions I do not always share, and he does not pretend otherwise. I find this absolutely wonderful. This is what I had not had. This is what Thomas had never given me in all the years of careful management. Simone met Paul at a dinner I hosted. Afterward, she said, "He looks at you like you are the most interesting person in the room." I said, "He looks at everyone like that. He is just like that." She said, "No, with you it is different." I believed her. I had noticed it too. I am not telling you that everything resolved into happiness without cost. There was cost. There was loss. There were months that were genuinely hard. There were evenings when the weight of what had happened pressed on me in ways I could not easily lift. But I am also not telling you that the cost was final. It was not. The marriage ended. The false belief ended. The paper that should have been filed was eventually filed. And from that place, I built something real, something that belongs to me completely. That is not nothing. That is actually everything. What I know now is that endings are not only loss, they are also space. Space for the thing that was crowded out to finally have room. Thomas crowded out a version of me that is now back. She cooks on Sunday afternoons. She disagrees when she disagrees. She trusts When trust is earned, she is someone I am glad to be. I was glad to be her before Thomas, too, but I did not know it as clearly. Now I do. Clarity is a strange gift to receive from a painful source, but it is still a gift. I take it as one. Marta says I am better now than I was before any of it. I am not sure that is true. I think I am different. I think I am more fully myself in ways that only become possible after you have been asked to be something else for a long time and found your way back to my Sunday cooking, back to my long conversations, back to the work I love, back to a table where the person sitting across from me is someone who chose to be there for real reasons. That is the life I have now. I would not trade it. The thing about being deceived is that people want you to be either devastated or transformed by it. They are not comfortable with the third option, which is this. You process it, you grieve what was real, you let go of what was not, and then you simply continue. You become yourself again, quietly and without ceremony. That third option is what happened to me. I was not destroyed. I was not magically rebuilt into a stronger, shinier version of myself. I was the same person I had always been, except I knew something new about what I could endure and what I valued. That is useful knowledge. I filed it away and got on with things. Paul and I have been together for 2 years now. We are careful with each other in all the ways that matter. Not carefully managed, the way things were with Thomas. Carefully chosen. There is a difference that becomes clear very quickly once you have lived both. With Thomas, there was always a version of myself I was performing. A version that was pleasant and not too questioning and good at keeping things smooth. I was very good at it. It is exhausting to be good at something that is wrong for you. With Paul, I am just Nadia, the one who argues when she disagrees and says what she thinks, and sometimes needs the evening to be quiet, and sometimes needs to talk until midnight. He accommodates all of it, not because he is tolerant, but because he is actually interested in who I am. I told him once that I found that strange, being interesting to someone just by being myself. He said, "You have been around someone who was not actually interested in you. That is why it feels strange." He said, "This is what normal looks like." I said, "I am beginning to see that." Simone came to a dinner I hosted last spring. She brought her boyfriend of 6 months. He is a steady, unremarkable person in the best possible way. Steady and unremarkable meaning present, consistent, honest, and not particularly impressive at first, and more impressive the longer you know him. She caught my eye across the table and gave me the smallest smile. I understood it. It was the smile of someone who has found their way to something real after a period of something false. I gave her the same smile back. We did not need to say anything else. My students sometimes ask me what I think love is. They ask because we study literature, and literature is full of love in all its forms. I used to give academic answers about romantic traditions and narrative conventions. Now I give them something more personal. I tell them that love is what happens when someone is genuinely interested in who you are and shows that interest through consistent attention over time. Not grand gestures, not dramatic declarations. Consistent attention, showing up, remembering, being present. That is what it is. They sometimes look disappointed when I say this. They wanted something more poetic. I tell them, the poetry is in the doing of it. The poetry is in the person who answers on the first ring. The poetry is in the Sunday afternoon when someone makes tea without being asked because they know you need it. That is where the poetry lives. I have more to learn. I know that I am not finished with the work of understanding my own patterns and what I want and what I am willing to offer. That work does not end, but I am doing it from a better place now, from a place where I can see clearly. Clarity is what I came out of all of this with, more clarity than I had before, about myself, about what I value, about what I will and will not accept, about the difference between what looks like love and what actually is love. Those distinctions are worth everything they cost to learn. Thomas is somewhere in the city. I do not know where exactly. I do not look. He has a life that is his. I have a life that is mine. The paper was filed. The matter is closed. There is nothing more I need from that chapter except the lessons it gave me. And those I have. I carry them the way you carry things that have made you more yourself. Not as wounds, not as warnings exactly, as knowledge, as the specific kind of understanding that only comes from having lived through something difficult and made your way out the other side. I came out the other side. I am here, cooking on Sundays, teaching on weekdays, talking with Paul until it is too late, seeing Marta, seeing Simone, living a life that is mine in every room and on every ordinary morning. That is where I am. That is everything I needed. My mother visited last month. She sat in my apartment and looked around at it. She said, "This feels like you." I said, "That is because it is entirely me." She said, "I know." She smiled. She held her tea. She said, "I am glad." I said, "Me too." We sat there in the afternoon light, and it was very simple and very good. There is a photograph of me from the month after the divorce was finalized. Marta took it. We were at a farmer's market on a Sunday morning. I am looking at something off to the side. I am not posing. I did not know the photograph was being taken. In it, I look completely like myself, relaxed and present and just there in a Saturday morning in my own life. I keep it on my desk. I keep it to remind myself of what I looked like when I was just myself without management, without arrangement, without the slight readiness that comes from living with someone whose reactions you are always slightly prepared for. I look easy in that photograph. Easy is a good word for what I want my life to feel like. It does feel like that now. Easy in the real sense, not without effort or difficulty. Easy in the sense of, this is mine and I move through it without bracing. Paul sits at my kitchen table on Sunday mornings and reads while I cook, and that is easy. My students argue with me about books on Tuesday afternoons, and that is easy. Calling Simone on a Wednesday to complain about something small and hearing her laugh at it, and that is easy. This is the life. Easy, mine, real. Thomas is somewhere I am not. That is the full extent of my relationship to him now. He is somewhere I am not, and the paper was filed, and the matter is closed. I could not be more complete in my moving on if I tried. Some endings are just endings, clean and total and done. I am glad of it. I am glad of everything that came after it. I am glad to be here. My mother called last week on a Tuesday. She said she had been thinking about me. I said, "Good things, I hope." She said, "Always." She said, "You sound well." I said, "I am well." She said, "Really well or just fine?" I said, "Really well." There was a pause. She said, "Good," and that was enough. That was more than enough. I teach my students that the endings in literature are never really endings. They are just the last thing the writer chose to show us. The story continues beyond the final page. The characters go on living in whatever direction the story sent them. I believe that I am the evidence of it. The marriage ended, the page turned, and then I just kept going. And going was very good. What I want anyone who reads this to understand is that the paperwork matters, but it is not the thing. The thing is the life you build from the moment you are free to build it. I built mine carefully and honestly, and with real people around me. It is full, it is good, it is entirely mine. That is what I want. That is what I have. I would not trade a moment of the hard part if it meant giving up a moment of what came after. Paul asked me last month what I was thinking about. We were sitting on my sofa. The apartment was quiet. I said, I was thinking about how good it is to be here. He said, here where? I said, in this room, in this life. He said, is it good? I said, yes, genuinely and completely. He said, me too. We sat there for a while longer and said nothing more, and that nothing was very full. Sometimes the most honest thing you can say is the simplest thing. It is good here. That is the honest thing. After everything that preceded it, after the folder on the table and the 14 months of false belief and the lawyer call and the woman at the door, after all of it, it is good here. I am well. I am here. That is everything. I have been thinking about the word trust, what it means after you have trusted someone who did not deserve it. You would think it would mean you stop trusting. For some people it does. For me, it went the other way. I became more careful, more deliberate. I stopped giving trust automatically and started giving it as something that was earned. That is not distrust. That is discernment. There is a very important difference between those two things. And learning it was one of the most useful things the whole experience gave me. Simone and I had a conversation about this recently. She said she had noticed that I trust Paul very fully. She asked how I knew it was safe. I said, because I watched him over a long period of time, and nothing about what he did contradicted what he said. She said, that sounds exhausting. I said, not anymore. I said, when you are watching someone who is actually trustworthy, the watching becomes easy because there is nothing suspicious to find. She thought about that. She said, that is a very good point. Paul is trustworthy. I can say that with complete certainty, not because I want it to be true, but because I have had enough experience now to know what trustworthy actually looks like. It looks like consistency over time. It looks like the same behavior, whether anyone is watching or not. It looks like honesty that costs something, because real honesty sometimes does. He has all of those things. I find them endlessly reassuring. I find them beautiful. I find them enough, more than enough. Exactly what I needed and wanted and now have. Marta came over last Tuesday. She brought food. She does this without asking because she knows I like that. She knows that the people I trust most are the ones who simply show up with what is needed without making a thing of it. She brought soup and good bread, and we sat at my table and talked about everything and nothing. At one point, she said, you know you are different now. I said, different how? She said, lighter. I said, I feel lighter. She said, it shows. She said, you take up more room now, in a good way, like you stopped making yourself smaller. I thought about that for a long time after she left. She was right. I had been making myself smaller, not just with Thomas, before Thomas too. The particular habit of shrinking that some people develop when they have spent time around people who respond badly to fullness. I had been doing it for years without knowing. It is easier to do than you would think and harder to undo, but I am undoing it. I take up the room I take up. I say what I think. I do not apologize for being present. That is who I am becoming. That is who I always was, underneath the shrinking. I am glad she is back.